right, guys, we are here with Amber Powderly. She's a sarcoma survivor. I'm Justine Connor with the Paula Takacs Foundation, and we're going to be interviewing Amber on your story today. So yeah, let's start with just a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your family, and what you enjoy doing?
Okay. Hey, my name is Amber Powderly, like she already said, and I am a three-time sarcoma warrior. I was raised in a small town outside of Charlotte called Mount Holly, and I grew up with two identical sisters. And my young adult life prior to cancer, I was a pediatric dental hygienist for Charlotte Pediatric Dentistry, and I enjoyed going out with friends. I was following my boyfriend at the time, a band member, all around Charlotte, listening to him play. And that's kind of where my story began. And right now, what I really enjoy now in my own time, now that, almost 10 years has passed, is I love to do anything outside. I have 4 small kids, and we love to be outside, go on bike rides, go on walks. I would love to work out. I am overjoyed when I'm able to work out, but it just doesn't fit into my schedule. So we spend time biking, walking, working in the garden, doing yard work, and hanging out with the kids.
That's a workout too.
Yeah, it is a workout.
Yeah, I'm with you. I enjoy all the outdoor stuff. So obviously you're a sarcoma survivor. Tell us about the first time you realized something was off.
Okay, so the first time I realized something was off, it was 2015. I was 26 years old at the time, and I was young, following my boyfriend around town, playing in a band. I worked out hardcore with a really close group of friends, 3 other girls. We called ourselves the Core 4. So I was very active, very in shape, just living every day carefree, like a care in the world, not thinking about when my last day would be. And then one day I started getting swollen veins on my right leg, on the lower part of my right leg. And I thought it was weird, but we had just done a hardcore workout, like a boot camp type of workout, and I thought that I pulled a muscle in my quad. And my veins slowly continued to grow and stick out even more, and to where my coworkers started to be a little concerned, and I started wearing compression socks. So that's when I really started bouncing around trying to see doctors. I didn't have a primary physician at the time because I was young and healthy, and I didn't need one at the time. So I sought out medical attention, and every single provider just pushed me away. There's nothing wrong with you. You're young and healthy. You're fine. Finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was one doctor sent me to the emergency room, a small town emergency room, thinking I had a blood clot in my leg. So I went in for that. And the provider at the time was just very rude to me. She was pushing me away. Wear compression socks, you'll be fine. And I was really upset, having gone through so many other appointments, that I really tried to be an advocate for my own health. I tried to push for more scans. I pushed for an MRI, and she just pushed back, rude, put me down. And so I left feeling very discouraged and upset, and just kind of like, wow, I guess this is just how it's going to be. Nobody takes me seriously.
That's super frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And so I just kind of let things keep going, and the symptoms got worse. My veins continued to get more swollen, and then on top of that, I started to have nerve damage feelings, like nerve sensations that were not normal. My leg would convulse uncontrollably, all the time when I was driving. I'd be working on a patient, talking to their mom, and I would just have to put on a happy face and just pretend like everything was okay, even though it wasn't, and continue to get worse to where I had many sleepless nights because I couldn't lay on that side because of the discomfort, and I felt like the blood wasn't circulating correctly. And then finally we were working out at the Core 4 and I, we were working out at the Dowd, and I'll never forget my ex. We had just broke up, and he walks in the gym. So of course, being a young adult, you try to act cool, like you're not bothered by it. So I'm on the squat machine, and I look down at my leg that's been bothering my right leg, and I notice a little lump on my right thigh, and I'm like, that seems abnormal, but I'm gonna shake it off. I made a joke of it. I started to call it Bertha. My friends and I had a good laugh, went on about our business. Well, one of my identical sisters, Ashley, worked with me at the dentist office at the time. And she went straight to my boss, Dr. David Moore, that ran the whole practice, and told him my situation and how ignorant I was being about not seeking further treatment and finding what's going on with me. So Dr. Moore, having just a really big caring heart, he took matters into his own hands. He contacted one of his friends that did biopsies, and he walked up to me midday and was like, I've contacted my friend, you're gonna leave and you're gonna go see him right now. And we've got the schedule covered, even though they didn't. That would have left them, one hygienist short for the rest of the day with no one to cover my schedule. He sent me and his friend immediately when he saw me, he sent me straight to Levine Cancer Institute, where I found myself face to face with Dr. Jeffrey Niesel performing my biopsy. So that's
scary,
kind of,
yeah.
So from start to finish, it really took me a year to get diagnosed.
Okay. And so, that's scary to be like have someone send you directly to a cancer institute when obviously you didn't think anything of it beforehand. So while you were there, and it sounds like they did the biopsy, did you find out then what it was, or when did you figure out it was sarcoma?
So, they sent me home that day and they scheduled me for, let's say, a week out for my follow-up report. And not a week later, the very next day, I am sitting with all my coworkers at lunch, and a call comes through on my cell phone, Levine Cancer Institute. Of course, I pick it up. I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like, my appointment's not for a week. And they tell me immediately, hey, we got your biopsy results back. We need you to come in this afternoon for your results appointment. And that's just when I knew that something was not normal. I couldn't finish my lunch. My coworkers, again, just stepped in to fill the void that I would leave. And I left. And it was midday, so all of my family was at work. No one could go with me. So one of my coworkers at the time, just a wonderful person, Marley, she was also a twin. Her twin was a nurse at the hospital. She sent her twin down to be, my support system there. So here I am in Dr. Niesel's office. We've got Dr. Niesel, his nurse, tissues all around, and this sweet girl that I had just met. And Dr. Niesel gives me the news that I had cancer. And so that's when he told me that I had cancer, and I was originally diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma that day.
Got it. Wow, that's so crazy to go from like thinking, and obviously a lot of doctors told you nothing was wrong, so you're like going through this process probably thinking like, I'm good, like nothing's wrong, like it's fine, and then going to figure out you have cancer. It's a big shakeup. So not only I know that did you face it one time, but you then faced it 2 more times after that. So tell us about the 3 different times and what each moment was like and how they were different.
Okay, so I kind of started to talk about the first time, but what I didn't get to say was the remainder of the story about my first visit. So, I'm sitting there in the office, and prior to going into the office, I had Googled, as we all do when you have a symptom, we Google. And I knew that the swollen lump on my leg, it could have been one of 2 things. It was either a benign tumor, no big deal, or it was sarcoma. And even whenever I Googled that, I made a promise to myself, if this is sarcoma, because I kind of casually read about it and I knew the statistics and how scary it was, I made a promise to myself that if it was sarcoma, I would never research it again. I would put my head down and just do the best I can. And so I knew what my odds were for each. So I was kind of prepared, like I kind of knew what it might be. And I'm sitting there in the office with this sweet sister of a friend beside me, and he gives me the news there's tissues all around, and you would think, I would grab a tissue, I would cry, I would faint, I would, do something, but honestly, it was the first time in my entire life that I just felt God's complete grace and comfort and strength, and it just felt like he wrapped it all around me, and I felt so strong, and I felt so capable, and I felt so able. And so at that moment, I didn't break down. I just felt like I was ready. I was ready to fight, and I knew that he had my back, and it made me feel really strong. So at that moment, I call my sisters and my mom and dad and tell them all to meet me at my mom's house. My dad was battling lung cancer in Georgia at the time, so we FaceTimed him in. I gave everyone the news. And after that day, life was just never the same. I didn't go back to the dentist office at the time. It was just appointments on appointments. So the first time I felt very strong and able and just like I could do it. And I knew that God had my back. Second time was a lot different. The week after my diagnosis, I was at my CPA, my normal tax appointment with my CPA, Jim Powderly. He and I had been on a couple dates prior, but I determined that he wasn't for me. And so my sister was with me at my CPA appointment, my tax appointment, and she brought up my health to him and told him what was going on to see how it would impact me for the following year and what I needed to do to be okay. And Jim broke down and told me, you know, of his sister-in-law battling cancer at that time. You know, and we laughed, we cried, and then from that day on, there has not been a day that I haven't talked to Jim. And even battling chemo the first time, and how sick it made me, I couldn't even look at a phone. It made me so nauseous, but every single day I picked up that phone, nauseous or not, and I texted him. So, short story long, we fell in love. We got married. We had a baby, our first miracle baby, Demi. I wasn't supposed to have kids. So here I am 18 months after my first diagnosis. I'm married and I have a little 4-month-old. So when Demi was 4 months old, I was told at one of my routine 3-month scans, hey, you have a spot growing in each lung and we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's sarcoma. It could be, we don't know. You've got 2 options. We can watch them and wait and do something if they grow, or you can opt in for surgery. And I didn't even look at my new husband. I didn't talk to him about what's best for our family or our future. I just looked at the doctors and I said, I want to have surgery. I need these out. I think that they're sarcoma and I want them gone. And so that's what we did. So before I knew it, I was in 2 bilateral VAT surgeries, which is just 2 separate lung surgeries a week apart where they just resected the tumors out. And then it wasn't until after I'm recovering from my 2nd lung surgery in the hospital, the doctors come in and give me the news of the biopsy report that they both were sarcoma. So thank goodness we got them removed. And then, you know, that was hard to hear, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, if they got it, I'm good to go. And then when the doctors left, my husband looked at me and he said, you know you have stage 4 cancer, right? And that kind of like, my heart just like dropped into the pit of my stomach and I just felt so sick and like I almost threw up. Like it was just a sickening, gut-wrenching feeling at that moment. So the second one made me feel like a smack in the face, like you don't know when your last day is gonna be. You may have a month, you may have a couple months. You may not be able to raise your daughter. You may not be able to grow old with your husband. And it was a big reality slap that this world that we live in right now is only temporary. And this isn't our forever home. And there is a home that's we're meant to be at forever, but it's not here. So that was a wake-up call to me. How fast things can go from like seeming like you're on the mend and you're okay to everything can be taken away with a blink of an eye. So that was the second time.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
really, no, it's good. Yeah, that's really scary, especially being a mom at that point too. So it's like not only your life you're thinking about, it's your daughter's life, your husband's life, because you're a part of them.
Absolutely.
And so I could see how the second one would be a lot different than the first.
It was a completely different feeling, a completely different emotion, a completely different awakening. And then the third time, you know, if you've already heard someone say you have cancer, not once, not twice, you would think, you know, you're kind of numb to it. But, you know, I don't think you're ever numb to it, you know? It's always a smack in the face. And so the third time was 6 years after my original diagnosis. And it was it was right at 5 years from my lung surgery where I was considered cancer-free again, NED, cancer-free, or no evidence of disease. So it was about 5 years after that, and it was also about 5 years after our wedding anniversary. So if anyone battling sarcoma or a family member or a doctor or someone who works in the field, they understand that the 5-year mark, that's the goal. You know, you want to make it to 5 years. your statistics of survival increase greatly at the 5-year mark. So like that is a big celebration. So, you know, here we are as a young family. We're making all the plans for 5 years. We're ready to celebrate. And in between, you know, 6 years had passed. By that time, I'd had 3 children, and I had Demi, Leo, and Sylvie, and I was actually pregnant with our youngest, Elle. I was 6.5 months pregnant. I had also started a small business with my 2 identical sisters named Sister Cider, and I was running that at the time, so very busy. And I had my routine. At this time, I went from 3-month scans to 6-month scans. So I was on 6-month scans. I go in for my results appointment. You're good. Everything's great. You're cancer-free, NED. And I was just boasting. I was just ready to shout the news from the rooftop, and I was. Anyone who knows me knows I don't really like social media. I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like doing it. But I did it for my small business at the time. Well, I just made a very vulnerable post the day before about how I was cancer-free, you know, and all my emotions, and I was so grateful and so happy. And the very next day, I get a call. I had booked childcare. My kids were with a sitter. I'm on my way to a doctor's appointment. I'm driving on 277. I get a phone call from my oncologist, and I'm like, that's odd. You know, I just got great news. Why are they calling me? You know, Dr. Livingston's very special to me, and I think we have a very special bond and relationship. And so I thought, you know, maybe he's just calling to say something funny to me, or talk to me, and like, you know, be like, great news, congratulations. But no, he very abruptly said, hey, Amber, all the specialists and I, we got together and we reviewed you at the lung conference, and there's a spot in your upper left lobe of your lung, and we all believe that it's sarcoma. And at that time, as I'm driving, I almost black out. I can't see straight, I can't think straight, I can't hear. I did not hear one other word that Dr. Livingston said to me, and I could not quote anything else he said. And that, the 3rd diagnosis led me to the realization that, you know, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I can't do it all. Maybe I need to take a step back. Maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. At that moment, I closed the doors of my small business. I took a step back and I was like, you know what? This isn't the plan for me. I'm going to focus on my health, my family, and seeing if I can help other people. And so that's kind of the turning point in my goals on life. So all 3 were very different. The first one, very strong. Let's go. I'm ready to fight. The second one, life can be taken away in an instant, and things can change, and you could lose everything that is a blessing to you within a blink of an eye. Then the 3rd time, what is this life really about, and why am I here? What's my goal? What's my purpose?
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, because I think when you go through something like this, it does truly make you reflect on life completely different, because there's so much of us that aren't going through cancer, and probably are too, that are kind of taking life for granted and what we have. And like you said, it truly can, like a diagnosis or anything can change your life so quickly. And so it's great, not great that you got it, but great that it allowed you to look at life differently and just refocus it the way that you truly did want to live your life.
100%. It's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
If you can say that.
Yeah. So I know you got the surgeries, and what were there any other treatments that you went through between those, like chemo, radiation, and kind of where you're at right now with that 3rd diagnosis?
Okay, so the first time when I was diagnosed, I did the standard of care for sarcoma that's been around for decades, cut, burn, poison, and that's chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Because the chemotherapy was so aggressive, I was inpatient at Levine Cancer Institute at Atrium, and I was there for 4 days straight, and they did a regimen of doxorubicin and a phosphamide. So some people know one as the Red Devil, so that's what I had the first time. And I would go into the hospital for 4 days straight. I would come home that night. The next day I would go back to the hospital, and they would do a Neulasta shot in my arm to help boost my white blood cell counts. Towards the end of my chemotherapy regimen in the hospital, I remember my immune system tanking so much that they had to put me in a special room that I didn't know existed, a special filtration room to help keep the bacteria out because my immune system was so low. So that was kind of where I ended chemotherapy. And then I completed weeks of localized target radiation to my upper right thigh, which is where my tumor was. And I completed weeks of radiation therapy, and then I had a gap in between. The goal of the chemotherapy was kind of to stop any circulating tumor cells and to just hit this really hard so it just quits growing. The radiation was really, the goal was to kind of try to shrink it away from, it was wrapped around my femoral artery, so the goal was kind of to get it off my femoral artery a little bit so that the doctors and surgeons could get clear margins. So after the radiation and chemotherapy, I did have a tumor resection in my upper right thigh. It was wrapped partially around my femoral artery, so they took part of my femoral artery, and then they completed a vein and artery graft from my left leg to my right leg to help give my right veins more support that they needed. So that was the first round. The second round, I had the bilateral VATS lung surgery, just two lung surgeries a week apart, where they just did tumor resections. The third time was the place that it was in my upper left lobe. We only had two options. We could do a high target, very, very, very targeted radiation, or a full lobectomy, but we chose not to do the lobectomy because your left lung only has two lobes, so you would lose a fourth of your lung capacity, which I just felt like I wasn't willing to do.
Yeah.
So we chose the high target radiation treatment with Dr. Prabhu, and that was completed 1 year ago, and I'm being monitored every 3 months for scans of my lungs. We do a CT with contrast of my lungs. And as of right now, it looks like the tumor is shrinking, which is a blessing, but it looks like the radiation blast, the target blast, seems to be a little larger than what they would have anticipated. So we're hoping for full lung capacity to regain in the future. That's my hope, not my hope. So that's kind of where we are. I'm being monitored very closely. I also have multiple other things going on in my lungs that we've been monitoring, and we will continue to monitor. So it's a 3 month at a time type of thing.
Yeah, 3 months at a time. So I know when you started this, like, you didn't have any kids, right? The first treatments, right? But then the second one, like the lobe surgeries, is that when you had
I only had one at the time.
one kid.
Yes.
So now you have 4 kids. So how, like, was it going through those with kids? Because, like, I'm thinking when you said chemotherapy, you're in the hospital for 4 days. I'm like, I don't have family in town. Like, what would I do with my kids then? You know, like, how did that affect your life?
It made it really hard because when I had my first lung surgery, when my daughter was 4 months old, you know, I was so leisurely and like so overjoyed to have her. Like, I held her all the time, like snuggled with her all the time, you know, napped beside her during the day, and like she was just like my immediate best friend. And since we were so close and so bonded, and I was so grateful, she was completely strictly breastfed. So it was really, really hard for me to hand my little 4-month-old baby over to my 2 sisters, praying like, please take a bottle, please be okay without me, like, please make me wake up from surgery, like, please bring me back to her. And then to have to do it 2 weeks apart, it was really hard, and I couldn't lift her for a while after. So, you know, going from being like a strong, independent, stubborn person, it really makes you step back. And I mean, my whole village just pulled together. Like, different people rotated in and out of my house taking care of her because people offered to take her away, you know, and keep her from me. And I said, absolutely not. Like, I cannot be without her. So everyone listened. You know, I think it's important when you're going through something like this to be honest with what you want.
Yeah.
You know, if you need your kids there to heal, like, say you need them there. So that's what I did, and I feel like it helped me to heal because I had her with me still the whole time for recovery. So that was hard, just more help really, and people help. Like you said, you don't have family. Like, people help that I never would have thought would have shown up to help. So thank you. I'm sorry. Let me try not to ugly cry. And now it really impacts me because, you know, like, you drop your kids off at preschool and you've got this short window, and everybody probably thinks like, oh, stay-at-home moms just like have it so easy, like you're just living the dream. But it's really a challenge to coordinate.
Yeah, 4 kids, like stay-at-home mom or not, like that's a challenge.
It's a challenge to make all the appointments. It's a challenge to constantly go through. It's a challenge to still be where we are now 10 years later. And even though you're like full of gratitude to be here, having kids adds another layer of making the journey hard.
Yeah, for sure.
But worth it.
Yeah. So we're talking about kids. So being a mom of 4, how has this whole experience shaped your outlook on life and survivorship?
Oh my goodness. You know, it's made me realize that, you know, one of the most important things in life to me now is just leaving a legacy, you know. Gosh, I didn't know this was going to be so hard. Just like leaving a legacy, like trying to set a good example, like, you know, as a parent, you know, you're constantly falling short of where you think you should be. And, you know, and I'm not always perfect with them, and I beat myself up for it, but I do the best I can. And I think just trying to set a good example for them and be a good example for them and make sure that they are growing into people that, good, kind people, you know, that like love Jesus with all their heart. Like I want them to know, like I want their hearts to be in the right place, so that if we're ever separated, we can always be rejoined again in heaven. You know, so I think that's the goal for me, is instilling those in my kids, and, you know, them being warm and welcoming to everyone. And obviously my goal is just to bug the crap out of my husband until we're like really old.
During your journey, were there any turning points or lessons that changed how you live each day?
The 3rd diagnosis, just because it's kind of like, when is this going to end? What's the reason? You know, so I think the 3rd one was the biggest, is you can't do everything, and you have to ask for help, and you have to accept help. And, you know, no matter who you are, like, even if you feel like you don't have family, or even if you feel like you don't have friends close, like, you know, you've got Living Cancer Institute, you've got the Paula Takacs Foundation, like, there's people that if you ask, are willing to step in and help you, even if they don't know.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into my next question is, how did you first get connected with the Paula Takacs Foundation?
I think it was when I was initially going through treatments, and I was at Living Cancer Institute. I think I saw a flyer about it. So I took the flyer. I think I talked to a nurse about it. They said they were all going. So I was like, okay, we'll go. I got my whole family, and we went to the Sarcoma Stomp. That was the first event we did, was the Sarcoma Stomp here in Charlotte. And at that day, my sisters, the kind of like logo that they did for my shirts, and my team, they created a team for me and a fundraiser for me, and it's honestly was such a blessing. It was how I paid all my bills. They did it all behind my back, because I was so stubborn and like so strong-willed and just gonna do everything by myself. So when I was diagnosed, my sisters made this Team Amber, and, you know, all the people I grew up with, high school, like all the people I'd worked with in the past, you know, they bought shirts, they donated, like they made it easy for me to fight and stay healthy and take care of myself. They just took that burden away. So the slogan that they did was, friends don't let friends fight cancer alone, and it's one of my favorite slogans. You'll probably see me wearing it on the back of my t-shirt every single year at the Stomp. But Sue Udelson, who was the director at the time, she walked up to me, I think, to chat about the logo, and she liked it, and so we just really hit it off. She genuinely cared about my story, and from my first meeting her through any other event I ever showed up at, you know, and she got my phone number, she would text me and check up on me, she would talk to me at the events. She really like pulled me in and made me want to do more of the functions with Paula Takacs and just show up and, you know that, you know, there's a support system and all of that stuff. So she really is someone that opened my eyes to the Paula Takacs. And then whenever, when she stepped down to go help her family, at that time in her life, this wonderful lady, Chris Wade, stepped in. And Chris Wade has a connection to sarcoma. She lost, I think her daughter was 14 years old at the time. She lost her daughter to sarcoma. She has 3 kids. She lost her middle child to sarcoma, which, as you can imagine, just changes your life, I'm sure. So she was redirected, and her path finally led her to the Paula Takacs Foundation. And I volunteer at a golf tournament to raise money for sarcoma for one of the partners that passed away at Ernst Young, Clayton Baker. And I've gone and helped with this golf tournament the last couple years, and I'm so grateful to do it. And last year, Chris Wade, the director, was the keynote speaker. So I contacted her and asked if I could do an interview, if I could meet her for coffee and interview her to kind of get her story, because I was the opening speaker for her and I wanted to do her justice. And we met for coffee, and she was just so inspiring. She was just such a strong person, brilliant. She had so many good ideas about how to take the Paula Takacs another step further. Like, what are her goals? What's the future look like? And I was just so inspired, and it just really filled me up inside. So, it made me excited. There's people out here like me that hate this disease and want to do something about it. This is amazing. It was just a breath of fresh air to be around her. And so when she asked me not that long after to join the board of directors, it was a really easy decision. So both of the directors really brought me in.
I started with Sue too, and now I'm with Chris, and it's amazing just to see how much the foundation is growing each year and how much of an impact they both had on the foundation. You were talking about how you shared your story at the Clayton and also at the Stomp, and and you're going to share it at the Clayton again this year, which I'm super excited to attend. What impact do you hope it has on others?
I hope it shows others either recently diagnosed sarcoma patients, sarcoma warriors such as myself, or family members, spouses, kids, siblings, mothers, fathers who have lost someone through sarcoma, and even anyone that's battling a chronic illness or having trouble in their life. The impact I want people to know and take away and hope to make is the fact that life is hard. You're always going to go through a valley, but you can't see the beauty of a mountain if you never cross a valley. And when you're there, it's okay to reach out and ask for help. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be all the things. And I hope that people realize it's okay to have a hard time, and it's okay to not live in the past. Who you were yesterday isn't who you have to be tomorrow. And I hope that people that have the means and feel it in their heart, I hope they donate to research. If it's not sarcoma research, make it any other type of cancer, make it any other type of chronic illness. If you have the means, donate to something that you feel is tugging at your heartstrings. Try to make this world a better place. Try to leave this world better than you found it. If you have the time, you may not have the money, if you have the time, volunteer somewhere, volunteer at church, volunteer at the homeless shelter, say something kind to somebody. I just hope that it brings lightness to this world,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think even more being involved with the Paula Takacs, it's made me realize my core values, and that's exactly what you're saying. Whether it's donating or volunteering or being involved, I want to do something that's going to leave an impact in this world and make a difference. And I hope what we're doing through the Paula Takacs Foundation does that.
Me too.
And so I think it all kind of floats together. So we'll end kind of on this last question. What's one piece of advice or encouragement you would give to others going through a diagnosis?
That's a loaded question. There's so much you could say. I think, the first thing that comes to my mind is it stinks. It stinks. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have any emotion that you feel like you need to have to get through it. however you're feeling during this diagnosis, or a family member who's watching someone, you know, a caretaker who's watching this, like, you know, it's extremely hard on the person diagnosed. It's even harder to be a caretaker. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and I will tell you, being a caretaker, you know, I was a caretaker for my dad who passed away from cancer. I was a caretaker for my grandmother who passed away from cancer. I was a caretaker for my aunt, who was like my second mom, who just passed away this last year with cancer. And I will tell you, being a caretaker is so hard because, you know, you carry the weight of that diagnosis on your shoulders. And no matter what you do, you can never show up enough. You know, you can never give them enough support. And so I think, you know, giving yourself some grace with, like, I'm doing as much as I can, you know, I'm helping as much as I can, and taking care of if you're the caretaker or loved one, like, take care of yourself, because whoever's fighting, like, they need you. If you don't put on your oxygen mask, you can't put on theirs. So take care of yourself. And then what I would say to sarcoma patients is, you know, be an advocate for your own health. Throughout the cancer journey, the oncologists normally, and the radiologists, radiation oncologists, and all the medical professionals, you know, they give you so many options, you know, or multiple options, and then there's different doctors that you can see. But ultimately, it's your decision what treatment you want to do. When I was first diagnosed, I did all the traditional medicine, modern medicine that was recommended to me, but I also tagged on a lot of holistic things because I felt like that was what I needed. And then I've implemented more holistic things as time has gone on, because it is a financial burden. So I think, you know, listen to your heart with what you need. You know, if they give you two options, pray over it, meditate over it, see what feels right for you and your family. You know, really, really listen to you about what your body needs and go with it and be okay with your decision. If you're meeting with a doctor and you feel like you're not vibing well, you don't like what you're hearing, seek out someone else. You know, there's so many sarcoma specialists. You know, you may have to drive. That's okay. Go get another opinion and do it fast. Don't wait. You know, time is of the essence. Like, take control of your health, and don't waste a minute. Like, make a decision that you feel comfortable with. And, you know, if you're recently diagnosed and you don't know where to turn, you know, contact the Paula Takacs Foundation. Look on our website. At the bottom, we've got all these links to help you. You know, if you need help financially, like, there's options for you. If you need help, you know, with like food or wigs or anything, like, I know where I went, Levine Cancer Institute, they offer things there. They offer classes like ask your nurse navigator, ask your nurse, like, ask for help. I think you'll find out when you start asking for help, there's so much more that you can be given to lighten your load and lighten your burden. So don't be ashamed to ask. And, you know, anyone that's on the board of directors at Paula Takacs, everyone has a tad of sarcoma. So if you're having a hard time, all the board of directors, anyone, I'm sure, would be happy to help you. They're all survivors, or they've lost someone from sarcoma and they've been touched by sarcoma in some way. Like, show up at my house. Like, I am happy to help you. I'm happy to be here for you. And I think I'll just close with this, because there's so much I could say to, you know, sarcoma patients, but I think I'll close with this. During my initial diagnosis, my now husband, you know, he's told me something, and it sticks with me, and I treasure it, and I hold it very close to my heart. He said, every day that you fight is a day that someone's a step closer to finding a cure. There's so many people, smart people in this world. It's only a matter of time until they find a cure. So just keep fighting, and each day we're getting one step closer, and I just treasure that.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you're getting closer and closer. There's better treatments, there's better diagnosis, and so I love that, and I love that it came from your husband.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know it's not always the easiest thing, but it helps other people out there know that they're not alone going through the same thing, and hopefully will give them some insight on maybe something they're experiencing, or like you said, being an advocate for themselves and all those things can truly help any person in the future going through a diagnosis. So thank you so much for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
story.
Thank you for having me. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll just end here.
Okay.
Bye.